Welcome to TSNN's monthly webinar series. Today's webinar will discuss 10 tips to create an exhibitor retention strategy. You can submit a question at any time during the session, so please join in. Alternatively, you can join the conversation and ask questions on Twitter, #TSNNwebinar. Now Arlene Shows, Marketing Manager for TSNN, would like to say a few words.
Hi, everyone. Here at TSNN, we are excited to get educated today on 10 tips for creating an exhibitor retention strategy. We are very fortunate enough to have the perfect professionals to educate us today for this webinar, so we appreciate you tuning in. A big thanks to our sponsors today, MCCA Advantage Boston. They are revolutionizing the event experience with 2 state-of-the-art facilities and award-winning end-to-end services. And Onstream Media, they continue to help us deliver these educational topics to you free of charge. All TSNN webinars, as a matter of fact, are brought to you by Onstream Media, the leader in multimedia webinar and webcasting services. Their technology can help you get better results for your own organization. Onstream's virtual event solutions can connect you with colleagues and customers, extend the value of your events, and boost profits. Webinars and webcasts provide a platform for branded virtual events that can enhance the value of a live show or operate as single revenue generating events. For a free demo and to learn more about how Onstream webinars and webcasts bring measurable ROI, visit onstreammedia.com. Now allow me to introduce you to our moderator today, BJ Enright. She serves as president of Tradeshow Logic, an event solutions company. She is responsible for leading the company's business and for executing business strategy. BJ also has an extensive career in the trade show industry. She began her career as an exhibitor services representative for Andrews Bartlett, where she learned that even when everything goes right, exhibiting can be an exhausting experience. She went on to hold executive sales and management positions with Andrews Bartlett, the Aaron Group, and GES before starting her own company, where she facilitates event strategy sessions for clients and helps them to take their exhibitor services to the next level. She currently serves on the board of EM2A and is a member of and has served on various committees, including ASAE, PCMA, IAEE, HCEA, and TSEA. We can't wait to get started. BJ, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I barely recognize myself. Thank you. That was nice. At this time, what I'd like to do is also introduce my 2 co-speakers. Lawson, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
I'm Lawson Hockman. I've been in the business, I guess, going on a little over 40 years. Actually started in the trade as an electrician. Went on to work for National Electrical Contractors Association, where I produced their trade show for about 20 years. Then went to National Solid Waste Management Association, where I produced their show and ran their publications for 10 years, sold that show. And then for the last 13 years, I've been working on show production, worked with about 10 trade shows on sales, operations management, and also involved in buying and selling trade shows.
Thank you very much, Lawson. Kevin?
Thanks, BJ. My name's Kevin Miller, and I'm the president of Frost Miller Group. We're a marketing communication firm based in Bethesda, Maryland, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. We've been in business for over 20 years. And our primary area of business is trade show marketing. And we have, over the course of the last 10 or 12 years, worked for about 50 different trade shows, ranging from small, intimate gatherings of 20 to 50 people up to mega shows with exhibit halls of 850,000 square feet. And I am appreciative of all of you who have signed in today for this webinar. I think it's a topic that will provide a lot of good information. We're looking forward to speaking.
Thanks, Kevin. So what are we going to talk about today? Today we're going to talk a little bit about how it's important to know the state of the exhibition industry and how we're all doing as an industry. And then before we can create an exhibitor retention plan, it's important to understand exhibitor motivations as well as their pain points. Then we're going to talk to you a little bit about some of the elements that should be included in an exhibitor retention plan. And then finally, we'll give you 10 strategies that will get you on your way. First of all, let's take a look at, FEAR publishes a overall exhibition industry economic outlook, easy for me to say. And this is a great guide to let us know what's going on in the industry. And over the past years, as we've all been facing declines with our shows, a lot of us anyway, and our exhibitor retention plans might have been different, or maybe we didn't even think we needed to have an exhibitor retention plan. I still am old enough to remember the glory days where if you build it, they will come, and pretty much you just needed to send out an exhibitor prospectus, and the exhibitors showed up, and they increased their booth space, and life was grand. And then things changed a little bit, and we had to start putting our selling hats on and making sure that we're putting good plans in place. The economic outlook, in fact, SEER just put out a recent outlook, and it stated that the industry is going to continue to grow, although pretty slowly, but we should get back in line with the overall gross national product, which would be nice, and but the growth that we've experienced thus far has been pretty moderate. So that makes it more and more important for us to make sure that not only are we really focused on selling new exhibitors, but maybe more importantly, as I say, make new friends, but keep the old one in silver and the other's gold. So it's important for us to put plans in place to make sure we're retaining those exhibitors that we already have. So let's take a little, and it's important that we make sure that we know what's going on in the economy so that our plans are in alignment with the economy. So let's take a look at what are the types of things that motivate exhibitors. Why do they actually increase? What would cause them to increase space? One might be that their business is actually growing, so they want to make sure that they are there, or that they're expecting it to grow. They may just need larger space, or they may have more products to display. And they might be adding new products and services that they want to promote, or they just need to have more people in their space. They may just simply need more space, or they may be having a new focus on their branding efforts, and they may just want to increase their viability. Those are some different reasons as to why exhibitors might want to increase their space. And I think it's important on our own shows that we ask our exhibitors through our surveys and through our focus groups and through talking and interviewing with exhibitors that we understand and are able to identify when any of these reasons might be out there. One of the things that we do with our team is research our exhibitors and through the web and do almost like competitive analysis on them so that we can find out when they're launching new products, and we just kind of track them and follow them on Twitter, and so we can identify when an exhibitor might be adding new products or looking to increase their space. So why do exhibitors keep the same space, which is the most common situation, I would say? Most of them are just satisfied with their current space. They did it last year, they're going to do it again next year. They may not have the money to increase their space size, and finally, it could be just additionally cost and budget restraints. When exhibitors look at decreasing their space, most of the reasons are related either to budget and finances, or ROI, or decreased attendance and traffic. Most of the reasons, at least, that they'll give you are that it's based on budget or finances. So once we understand a little bit about why exhibitors, what would cause them to increase their space or decrease their space, another thing to really understand is what are their exhibitor pain points. And I think if you're exhibiting, and if you guys, I don't know how many of you have ever walked in your exhibitor's shoes and tried to place orders to the exhibitor service kit, or but when you exhibit, if everything goes perfectly, it's probably still a bummer. because you probably had to carry some stuff and sweat and walk from a long distance from the parking lot all the way to your booth. And even if everything was there like it's supposed to be, and you still got to get it set up and work through it. So it's all, even in its most perfect form, exhibiting is imperfect. And in 2008, I don't know if any of you have read the white paper that was called The Invisible Exhibitor. It was put out by Maya Design and the Expo Group. And they asked exhibitors and tried to find out things that exhibitors know about exhibiting but are afraid to tell us. And there were 4 main areas that the things fell into. One was anxiety, that they just are, the whole exhibiting process just is overwhelming, and that it's just a tough process to deal with. 2 was that it's just expensive. Exhibiting and all the things that go around exhibiting are very expensive, and not only expensive, but even worse, they're confusing. The next general area of pain was just an exhibitor's general busyness, is what they called it in the white paper. But they basically are dealing with a myriad of details from multiple shows, and they have a lot on their plate, and so it's very hard to deal with the many different things that go on just with planning each of the shows in which they participate. And then the final area they identified was confusion, that they just don't understand all the information that they're given, and they think that it's really difficult to figure it all out. So in more detail, some of the things that the exhibitors specifically mentioned as pain points were lodging, priority point systems, exhibitor service forms, material handling and shipping, labor, just all the show services in general, their position on the show floor, and then just how information is handled. So it's important to understand what these are, because as you're putting together your exhibitor retention plan, and if you haven't read the Invisible Exhibitor white paper, it's a good one to read, and I would highly recommend it. And being able to use some of these to overcome some of these pain points for exhibitors within your retention plan is a good idea. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you, Kevin.
Thanks, BJ. Just like in the same way that you would develop a marketing plan or a marketing communication plan for your attendee acquisition or for your exhibitor acquisition, or even sponsorship sales, you want to develop a plan for exhibitor retention as well. And it should be just as formal a document as you prepare for both your exhibit attraction and attendee attraction plans, because as you know, it's much more expensive to get a new exhibitor than to keep an existing one. So it's important that you develop a plan. The first step in developing the plan is gathering information, and I think that those slides that BJ was referring to a couple of slides back that showed why people grow their booth space or why people reduce their booth space is very telling. And I would imagine that most of you show organizers probably have attendee and exhibitor surveys that you do, and that information is vital because you really want to understand what the issues are with the exhibitors. And as BJ pointed out in the slide, they may say finances would be a reason why they would want to shrink space, but what they're probably really saying is that they're not getting a good return on their investment. And that could speak as much to their exhibit or the attendees, or the fact that they don't feel that they're getting enough from the show organizer. So I think you have to really dig deep and get good information from your exhibitor surveys or from face-to-face interviews on the floor in order to come up with a good plan. You want to start with identifying your goals and objectives. And obviously, your goal is probably to increase the percentage of exhibitors that you retain. But you may have other goals and objectives as well, and it's really important to identify those because those will help suggest what strategies are appropriate for you. For instance, you may want to develop or grow your sponsorship opportunities, and you may find that a good, strong exhibitor retention strategy is one way to build sponsorships. You may want to get additional attendees through the exhibitors. And so you might want to work on a strategy that makes it easy and beneficial for your exhibitors to help support your attendee acquisition. You may want to turn your event into a 365-day expo experience. And in order to do that, you need to have a good strategy in mind to get your exhibitors engaged and show them ways that they could be involved with attendees throughout the period between events. So you really want to identify what the goals and objectives are before you put a plan together. And then also you want to identify your target audience. And one very important thing that we recognize when we do any marketing plan is that exhibitors represent a very diverse cross-section of your target audience. And a one-size-fits-all approach to reaching them is generally not effective. Just in the same way it's not effective to have one message to reach out to all attendees, because some of them have very different reasons for wanting to come to your show. So you really want to clearly identify who your target audience is and break it down into segments. As an example, on a show that the three of us, BJ, Lawson, and I, and my company worked on over the last few years is APCO International, which is the Association of Public Safety Communication Officials. They're basically the 911 call centers. And if you think about it, the people who would want to communicate with the people who are in charge of purchasing for those call centers could be selling radio equipment, advanced radio equipment, or something as unadvanced as uniforms, or it could be vehicles, for emergency response. Could be any number of things. So you have to realize that each of these different exhibitor groups are going to have different reasons for exhibiting. They're going to be looking at different booth size. They're going to be looking for different volume of traffic and sales. And so it's very important to understand the diversity of your target audience. Likewise, like with any good marketing plan, you want to have a timeline in place. And it's critical that the timeline includes pre-show communication, at-show communication, and post-show communication as well. A budget is essential. I think you have to treat this just the same way, as I said, you would treat an attendee acquisition strategy or an exhibitor acquisition strategy by developing a budget for your communications with your exhibitors in order to help retain them. And then management. As you'll see from the 10 strategies that we're about to share with you, they require a wide array of skills and experience, so that as you put your plan together, you want to make sure that you have the right resources in-house or the right consultants or advisors to make sure that you can execute all of the strategies. And with that, we're going to transition now into talking about 10 strategies that we feel are most important for you to consider. And I'm going to take the first three because they involve more of the things that I've been involved with, which is more of the communications and the marketing communications thing. And the first one is essential, and that's increasing and improving communications. Because the care and the handling of exhibitors doesn't end when they're signed up. Many exhibitors perceive their perception of your event and the ROI they get from it begins to take shape after they sign the contract. But oftentimes, exhibitors will receive a lot of communications from the show organizers prompting them to exhibit, and once they sign up, that communication ends. So it's really essential that organizers communicate with their exhibitors constantly, before the show, during the show, and after the show. And there are many different tactics that you consider for this. For instance, you may want to consider creating some sort of monthly e-newsletter or more regular e-newsletter, which includes important deadlines and sponsorship opportunities, advertising opportunities, tips on how to be better exhibitors, and all of the different ways that you can educate them. During the exhibit, for instance, you should really make sure that you have one or more of your senior staff people in the association or the show organizing firm visit with the exhibitors in their booth to check in on how their experience is. If they're having a positive experience, it would be a great opportunity to collect testimonials from them and take a quick photograph of them so that you can use that for future promotion. If their experience isn't going so well, a personal visit from one of your senior staff will help ensure that the organizer is aware of the problem so that they can address it immediately. So really improving and increasing your communication is essential to making sure that the exhibitor has a positive experience and that they begin to feel like they're getting a good return on their investment. Another tool that exhibit managers are increasingly using is social media. And of course, we all know about social media, but I think as business people, we're probably also all struggling to identify where and when social media is effective. And I think all of us in the trade show business know that because social media is so good at building communities, And developing and executing a successful trade show is about bringing a community together, that there's a really nice marriage between social media and the trade show business. A couple of examples of how this has been effective recently on some situations that we've had that you might be able to take with you and use for yourself. One show that we work on, that we provide the marketing communication for, is a large show called Mine Expo. And it's a show that is put together by the National Mining Association, and it takes place once every 4 years. It's a big show. Last year, in 2012, it had 850,000 square feet of exhibit space. Leading up to last year, the National Mining Association never had used social media. And like a lot of people, they were very skeptical about it and really wanted to start with sort of a toe-in-the-water approach to social media. They were doing a fine job of attracting domestic attendees. Show. But like a lot of show organizers, they were struggling with international attendance, not so much because of the show, what the show offered. There was much to offer for international attendees. But marketing to people outside the United States is very challenging, as you all probably know. Direct mail particularly is very challenging. Many companies in Europe don't even allow direct mail unless it's opt-in. So the National Mining Association agreed to have us develop a social media strategy primarily targeted at attracting attendees from outside the United States, and particularly in a couple of countries, Russia, Australia, and Brazil in particular, that had very well-developed mining industries. So we basically put together a fairly basic strategy that included a Facebook group and Twitter. And we had tremendous results from people. In the 9 months leading up to the show, about 1,000 people followed the website, and it was a great opportunity for the trade show organizer to put information out to attendees. But what was really interesting was what happened during and after the show, and that's the communication that took place between the exhibitors and the attendees. So the show organizer, which had been pushing information out, it sort of became supplanted by communication between exhibitors and attendees, and the participation grew even faster after the show. So in the 12 months after the show, nearly 1,500 additional people began following the Mine Expo Facebook page. So now that there are about 2,500 followers. So that's been what initially was a tactic to try to generate international attendees has become an opportunity to extend the life of the show to 365 days a year by enabling exhibitors, show organizers, and attendees to have a dialogue and speak with each other. Another very simple example is Digestive Disease Week, which is a show that talks about the digestive system. It attracts about 15,000 attendees and has, on any given year, 2,000 to 3,000 exhibitors. And DDW, which is the show organizers, put together a brochure that was given to both attendees and exhibitors that told them about all of the various different social media vehicles that were available to the attendees exhibitors so that they could benefit and enhance their experience by using social media. So something as simple as that was very well received by both the attendees and the exhibitors. In addition to that, there are things that you can do for the exhibitors to make them feel special. You know, things that may not seem like big, huge things, but everybody does like rewards, and people feel as long as they're recognized, especially exhibitors, and for exhibiting for repeat years, studies have shown and anecdotal information has shown that those people respond better and feel that they're getting a better return on the investment. So things as simple for an exhibitor who's returning for their second year, giving them a ribbon or something that shows that they're a multi-year exhibitor, or recognizing them at a special general session, or even offering people who are in their second year and beyond free Wi-Fi on the show floor, something like that. And then maybe when they become exhibitors for 3 to 5 years, you add to that package by providing, complimentary lodging for one of the exhibit staff members. And, you can come up with a table where you add additional things over the years to give them more as they exhibit more. So this goes, beyond the priority points type of program that most exhibitors are given, and really gives them tangible things and perks that will positively affect their ROI. With that, I'd like to move on now to a few other strategies.
Okay, Ms. Lawson, I'm going to talk a little bit about exhibitor renewal plans and the Pareto Principle, which is basically an 80-20 plans, where about 80% of your exhibitors contribute about maybe 20% of your budget, and 20% of your exhibitors contribute 80% of their budget. And then facilitating connections through attendees and exhibitors. But an exhibitor renewal campaign is sort of interesting. You know, it always goes back to the basics with exhibitor renewal. We just got more technology to use to make it more successful. But one of the biggest areas I look at on trade shows that I'm involved with or see in the marketplace is the branding of the exposition itself. And a lot of times I'll see that if it's an association show, the association will be branded, but the exposition doesn't have a brand. And I think this becomes very, very, very important for exhibitors to know your show, for the attendees to know your show, and to build your marketplace in the industry. And with that, I also think you have to include a sub-brand for various products and services in your show and break that sub-brand down. And we'll talk about that a little more later, because one size does not fit all. I think the other thing you have to look at is you're starting to build your plan, and your plan should be in writing. I'm going to stress that. It should be in writing. It should not just be in your head. I think you have to look as you're building your plan each year, what are the new segments? What are the changes in the industry? I see a lot. I do a lot in the renewable energy field and wind power, some involved in solar and gasification. It's interesting. Not only are exhibitors changing their market base, they're expanding their market base, consolidation in the industry, but attendees are changing their base also. So there are two parts of building the plan: knowing who your exhibitors are, knowing what the potential markets are, and knowing who your attendees are and are going to be in the future. The other thing I really look at when I build my plan, when I'm looking at some of my larger and even some of my smaller exhibitors, I not only want to know who that exhibitor is, I want to, if they have a EAC or exhibit point of contractor, I want to know who that person is, because that person not only is building the booth, they may be determining if the exhibitor does multiple shows, what shows they should participate in. They may be handling the marketing. If they're not handling the marketing and there's an outside marketing company, you need to know that information also. You just can't look at the exhibitor and just take it for granted. Talking to that one person is going to make a difference. As your competition in the industry, and we are a global market now, and exhibitors are changing their market focus, and they only have so many dollars to spend. So I think you have to look at all that today as well. And that really leads into one thing: research. You need to spend as much time on research as you do selling. And I don't think we spend enough time doing that. And you got to set your goals and objectives. And a lot of that to me is you have certain key exhibitors. You know they're going to be with you year after year, or you hope they will, based on the market. I want to build my plan. I want to know who they are, and I don't want to just sell them 1 year out. I want to sell them 2 years out, not only exhibit space, but I want to look at sponsorship. The other thing I want to be very close to, I want to be totally integrated with my membership department, if there is one, and you're not doing an independent show. I want to know who those members are, what they think of the association, how they're participating in the association, how are they happy with the services, not. Because it's just as easy to lose an exhibitor based on their membership status as it is for the show itself. So you have to look at that. I look at also breaking down, when I break down my segments for selling exhibit space, I'm looking at first-time exhibitors, first-time repeat exhibitors. I'm looking at regional markets. Regional markets are very, very important. we say our shows are national in the U.S., but if you really look at statistics, there's as much a regional focus, maybe 20-30% of our exhibitors, if you go back and forth across the country, as in that one location. As I already stated, my long-term exhibitors, I want to know a little more about their back end beyond the contact person. Sometimes my contact person is not the same person I'm going to have on site. The person I have on site may be the key marketing or salesperson that I have to keep satisfied. Also, looking at industry type. Products and services, as stated before, they're changing consistently. Also, I talk to exhibitors all the time. Hey, larger like GE, who are your component manufacturers? Are there displays, or their products or services are in your booth, or are they separate? I want to find a way to sell them into the show, get them involved in the show. I want to know today who are joint venture partners. What I mean by that, GE and Motorola may compete in some areas, but in other areas, they may have joint ventures. If they do, I want to find a way to tie into that market. I also want to know the key buyers these people are dealing with, because I want to go in and look in the back end of these key buyers to see what other products and services they use, so I can build out my show. So it's very, very interesting looking at the back end, and part of that is actually going out and visiting your exhibitors, visit your key attendees, and a lot of them are regional, local where you are. And the other thing I really want to do is participate in other shows, even if I'm walking the floor, just to see what other industry segments are there that maybe I'm not taking advantage of. On my tactics, I use probably a 6 or 7 part campaign on sales. The first part of it is probably an email. I may do 3 of those. I'll probably do the first for 2014 on a show, and I have on October. I've already done my first email to target exhibitors to bring them in before the show. I'll guarantee them last year's prices, or I may give them special discounts. If they increase their space, I may set up a special program or special advertising or promotion for them based on booking early. After that, they say, used to talk about direct mail not being important, but I tell you, on some of the key people, direct mail is still important. It's getting it to the right person and identifying the right person. And it may be more than one person in a company, and may be more than one division in a company to reach that right contact. It also work on some things on a telemarketing campaign, just to find out a little more about companies I may be trying to identify, try to find out more about their products and services from the website. May be able to pick up a contact or a phone number, so we'll go in and call them and get our people to do it, just to get a little more background and find out what are their events are and their interest. If we find that right person in there, then I'll have key salespeople call on them. It may be personal, depending on who they are, the size of the exhibit, where else they may be exhibiting. We may be going to visit that show. And if I have trouble with some of my key exhibitors, one of the biggest things I've started to do, and one of the big things we do, is we'll have our CEO call that exhibitor if we think we have a problem. We may have a board member call that exhibitor. So there's constant follow-up to keep up with the industry. The other thing we do is work with exhibitors on advertorials in publications. A lot of times advertorials you don't have to pay for, but they get them in trade publications. They get publicity, we get publicity, because we ask them to mention our show or to help them write that information into the text. And the other thing we always do with exhibitors, we always do a welcome letter to exhibitors when they sign up. And as Kevin said, we keep up with them monthly, more if necessary. We have VIP campaigns that we work with the general service contractor, in some cases the building, and together we follow up to make sure exhibitors are getting special service. at all times. It isn't the size of the exhibitor that's important, because they're all present customers and future customers. The other thing we do when we get a new exhibitor and it's a 10 by 10 and we know they don't have a pro in-house to set that exhibit, we actually help them set that. We'll help them get their exhibit set up. If it's getting a general service contractor to do it, we have a history of always making sure we have one or two people, labor on staff, that could set booths for people that don't understand them. And in some cases in Chicago, just came out of there last year, I actually had the Teamster Stewart help setting a couple booths up, mainly because they want to continue that business. It's all relationships. The other thing I always like to do is make sure I have a real strong timeline to follow up with everyone. Also, building a budget in advance, but that has to be looked at monthly. Industry change, economics change, and as they change, I want to make sure we have the resources within our organization to sell. And that's another reason I like a written business plan, because in a lot of cases, I'm working with association now, they think policy is more important than sales. So they look at laying off a salesperson. The trouble is, they lay off a salesperson, there's less money to handle the policy program within the organization. And then going back to the Pareto Principle, hard to pronounce, depends on if you want to do it in Spanish, French, or English. But really, when you talk about it, there are key exhibitors in every show, and those key exhibitors can make you a success or make you a failure. And I think the biggest thing you have to look at when you look at something like that is making sure your key exhibitors are happy, make sure they're part of have an advisory committee or advisory board. I say advisory because I don't think you want them to be able to make decisions. You want to make sure when you have sponsorships, you want to make sure when you're selling your space that everything is equal. You can't do favors for people because they come back and bite you all the time. And visit those exhibitors. You've got to make sure that you have in your business plan to visit 10, 20 exhibitors every year. And anytime you're traveling, any place, take the time. All it takes is a knock on the door and going in to see them, and you'll make a friend for life. Multiple-year contracts, I mentioned that. It's nothing unusual to do a 2 or 3 year contract for an exhibitor, especially your key ones. And Kevin mentioned social media groups. Private social media groups and blogs are key, and you have to look at generations. You have to know which your exhibitors are still on paper or fax and which ones technology. And in some cases, you can help somebody build their technology back-end program. And when you facilitate connections, it really, and Kevin talked about this, a lot of it is attendee matchmaking, appointment setting. Appointment setting works for some shows, it doesn't work for others. But you still, at the same time, need to build out your segments on your show. You need to build out your audience segments and your exhibitors segments, and you need to put those people together. It's continuously. One piece doesn't fit all, and more, a lot of vertical, horizontal markets, but within every horizontal, there are a lot of verticals that you can look at. Exhibitors, and looking at attendance, when we build out and facilitate connections, we facilitate connections based on quality of attendees, not necessarily quantity. And most of the shows I'm involved with now, the exhibitors are more interested in those 50 qualified leads and 200 leads that they probably wouldn't follow up on. When we do that, we also make sure if we can assist on a follow-up on a lead retrieval system, we do that follow-up. We help that exhibitor follow up. We'll take that time after the show to make sure information gets out to the people they need to get it out to. Because we want the exhibitor back next year and we want the attendee back next year. So it's a joint program. It doesn't work on its own. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to BJ.
Thank you, Lawson. And it's a nice segue there over to education. One of the most important things we can do for our exhibitors to retain them is to educate them not only on how to exhibit better, but to educate them on what's available through the show and how they can best market themselves. And as rudimentary as it may seem, sometimes just educating them on proper ways to follow up on leads. And you can work closely with your general service contractor in the tips and tools. They're usually sending out reminders and information about, did you order your table, did you order your carpet? And it's just as easy to work with them to send out messages and or have your exhibit manager send out messages that say, hey, do you know how you're staffing the booth? Do you know what you want to accomplish in your booth? Have you set your goals and objectives? What's your plan for following up on leads? So educating and reminding exhibitors about good exhibiting behaviors is really important. And, of course, we can always do exhibitor webinars like we're doing today. There's no reason you can't hold a webinar to educate your exhibitors on what's available on the show. You can also work through your show floor managers to simply, as they're walking around the exhibit floor, saying, hey, make sure that you go to the networking reception tonight. Hey, did you know that there's this happy hour that's going on with attendees and you should be there? Sometimes you'd be surprised how little exhibitors really know that is going on outside of the exhibit floor that they should actually be participating in taking advantage of. One of the clients we work with, the American Academy of Pediatrics, actually offered priority points, and I know they're a point of confusion to exhibitors, as we stated earlier, but many of us are mired and married to our priority point systems. And but one of the ways that the American Academy of Pediatrics is getting their exhibitors to attend their training sessions is to give them not only some extra priority points, but also to reward them with a free attendee mailing list. So something that if they attend and they get educated on how to exhibit better, then they also get a reward that will help them to take those strategies and utilize them with a valued attendee list. So exhibitor education is really important, not only how to exhibit better, but also on how to reduce their costs. And if many of you do not know what your exhibitors are spending, I challenge you to get with your general service contractors and get an idea. I think you might be surprised that some of your exhibitors outside of their space fees have, $40,000, $50,000 bills that they're paying to their general contractor. Make sure you understand what those big exhibitors, the 80-20 that Lawson talked about. Make sure you understand what they're spending and how they're spending it, and what can you do as a show organizer to help them either reduce their expenses and or to help them manage their expenses better. So education is a really important process. And the next thing, if you go back to some of those pain points, a lot of them related to just the process of exhibiting and how challenging and frustrating it is. There's lots of things that you can do to simplify the things that exhibitors have to go through. I think a lot of our old policies that we have on the trade show floor are there just because they've always been that way. So I would invite you to challenge some of those old rules, like, do we really need to have 15 different drayage rates, or could those be consolidated into 2 or 3 really simple rates that are controllable by exhibitors? Do we really have to have all these different late fees? Do exhibitors really have to send in their insurance certificates, or they have to use the contractor's labor? Take a look at the kit and really look at all the fine print and read it and challenge it and ask, why is it being done? And if it doesn't have to be done, then eliminate it. A lot of those rules are in place for very good reasons, but I think what happens is things happen, we create a new rule. Every time something happens, we create a new rule to protect ourselves. And so every once in a while, it's a good idea to go back through some of those rules and really ask ourselves, are we just managing the one person, or is this a rule that really applies, to the greater community? And if it's just for one of the one or two people, I say simplify it and move on. Another thing you could do is if you look at, and a lot of show organizers are moving to this process, where when exhibitors order, you may or may not know that they order through sometimes as many as 15 different vendors. For one vendor for their carpet, another vendor possibly for their cleaning, or their custom furniture, or their audiovisual, their electrical, their internet. By the time they get done ordering, they've probably communicated with somewhere between 7 to 10 different suppliers. So simplify that and offer your exhibitors one point of contact for all the services that they provide. Makes things a lot easier. It's like the 10 by 10 exhibitor. If you have one point of contact, he feels like he has his own exhibitor-appointed contractor who's managing everything for him. Another thing that we all love and hate, I guess, is the on-site traffic builders, and what can we come up with that's new and different that hasn't been tried before. There's some that just always work. Exclusive exhibit hours, so let's not forget those. Food on the show floor is always a winner, so don't forget those. Those are two very old and staid traffic builders that we all should focus on. But then social media is giving us a lot more tools and fun things to experiment. When I went to the SECO show, the Southern Optometry Show in Atlanta, they actually had cash booths in each of the corners, which is sort of a new version of the raffle station that we've all done before. But it was kind of fun. When you went into the cash booth, you actually put your badge into it, and it had random winners in the cash booth throughout the show. So at any time they had one in each of the four corners of the show. So you put your badge in it, and if you were chosen, then you got to go into the cash booth, which created some excitement. It was kind of a different on the old raffle pool. Gamification. There's lots of cool opportunities with apps and with things that you could do to create games. I've seen a lot of scavenger hunts that are being controlled through the app, some photo-based ones where you have to find different things, and the show floor and the apps that are available today make that a lot of fun to experiment with. One of the most important things when you're planning your show is to understand what attendees really want from their show floor. We worked with the National Patient Safety Foundation, and when we interviewed their attendees, we found that they really wanted to be educated. They really didn't want to be sold. So one of the things that the National Patient Safety Foundation did was they created different areas on the show floor where they did actual classrooms in hospitals. They do demos, and actually one of them was so dangerous we had to actually tell the facility that it was just a demo, because somebody did a 911 experiment, and it was I'm losing the word in my head right now, but a dramatization basically of it, and everyone thought it was real. So if you're gonna do that kind of activity, make sure you let the facility know so they don't call 911 on you. But they created different areas on the show floor, and they provided attendees with a pamphlet that guided them through, and the different scenarios happened at different times throughout the show. And then they sold the exhibit space so that exhibitors who had defibrillators and or whatever products or services were going to be in that demo area were also exhibited in booths nearby. Another way that you can bring education to the show floor is to tie your seminars actually to exhibitors on the booth on the show floor. If you're not a medical association out there, you have more freedom with that, and you can through your apps and through your schedules tie. If you went to this session and it was about this topic, you might find these exhibitors helpful. Sort of the experience that you get on the web. If you like this, you might also like this, and you can do that with your education sessions as a way to build traffic. And our final strategy, number 10, is to document the experience. One of the things that our clients are asking us to do is a sponsorship fulfillment program where we actually help exhibitors, the exhibitors who have decided to sponsor. Once we sell them, sometimes we go, okay, there you go, thanks, and then we run away. So one of the things that our clients have been asking us to do is to actually document the sponsorship experience for them. So take pictures of their banners on site or their logos and say, 10,000 people walked across this show logo, 20,000 people attended this reception, and give them back pictures and reports that are explaining to them the value of what they actually did and showing back the value for what they did when they sponsored, and holding their hand through the entire process. In addition to documenting the experience, providing the exhibitors and sponsors with important performance data. Many of the exhibitors are using that ROI tool that's out there, and so making sure that your exhibitors have real stats on who the attendees are and what their demographics are is really important. And don't forget to say thank you to your sponsors. Have the key people on your board and in your leadership. Even better, visit them in person, but write them a thank you letter after the point, and that to say thank you, we noticed and we saw that you are exhibiting, and that was really important to us. So those are just some of the ways that you can actually not just, one of the other things that I forgot to say is actually you can also leave the exhibitors a note in their booth that says, hey, we'd like to thank you, 3M, because your company is doing these 5 things at the show, because a lot of times the people that attend the show are actually not the people who arrange for the sponsorships in advance. So the salespeople, it's nice to let them know what their company is doing and what they're sponsoring so that they can make sure that they leverage that while they're actually on site. So documenting the experience is a very valuable tool to help exhibitors realize the value of what you are providing them. So with that, we have about 5 minutes left. Does anybody have questions that you would like to, you can put them in the chat room and we'll answer them. And if not, then I have some important announcements. Also, while I make these important announcements, I'll monitor the chat room there. The recorded version of this webinar will be available on the TSNN website, www.tsnn.com. And then also, we would also like to thank our wonderful sponsors, without whom we would not be able to offer these wonderful TSNN webinars, MCCA Advantage Boston, and Onstream Media. And I don't see any questions in the chat room. So with that, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today, and you have 5 extra minutes in your day.